Hey everyone, welcome back. We have a special treat for you. We're going to start doing this podcast where we just kind of talk about ideas, conversations that lead up to jiu-jitsu, martial arts, and of course, MMA. Today, I have someone who's going to be part of this project with me. You'll see him a lot on the channel. You guys know who he is. Welcome, Martial Mind.
Thank you. What was the inspiration to start doing podcasts?
So, as you know, I study a lot. I study jiu-jitsu a lot. I listen to other podcasts, and I think part of me wanted to have conversations that a lot of people aren't having. And the conversations deal with jiu-jitsu and martial arts. Most people just talk about why jiu-jitsu is good for you, and we'll of course talk to some of those things, right? But I really wanted to dive deep into have conversations about how I see jiu-jitsu, how other people see jiu-jitsu, how that gives us a lens to see MMA a little bit better, because when we look at the lens of a jiu-jitsu lens and apply it to MMA, it gives us a different perspective than, you know, someone else who maybe doesn't train jiu-jitsu. So the thing that inspired me was listening to these conversations on these podcasts, listening to other people, and they were talking about jiu-jitsu, but they really weren't diving deep. Like what is going on with the competitors? What's going on with the hobbyists? What's going on with the people that just have these questions, or there's a lot of, I believe there's a lot of doubt sometimes with students. Maybe they go to jiu-jitsu schools and they feel like they're not progressing. And so I kind of wanted to start having these conversations and hopefully in return get some sort of influence on these students who are a little bit skeptical about what they're going through. That's kind of what made me do it. And then I thought it'd just be fun to have these conversations and kind of explore these ideas together.
Yeah, and I think it's really good, especially you talking about diving deeper, because like I talked to you about this a little bit when I was asking you about like the in-between. Like I feel like a lot of times we come in, like you learn a technique, say for example, De La Riva. You learn De La Riva where everything is perfect. You have your De La Riva hook in perfect, the right leg is right on the hip perfectly, you have all the grips, and then you learn the sweep. And then you go and you try to actually use it in like a live roll or competition, and your opponent kills one grip, and now you're like, oh crap, like what the heck do I do? So me personally, like I'm really excited to have these conversations with you, because me, as well as like other students, I'm sure, like I'm interested in going beyond just techniques. I'm looking for concepts that like I can apply to multiple different scenarios. So it's not like I'm just learning techniques, and then if that one technique doesn't work, I'm like, what do I do now? But like with concepts, I know that if I'm in a specific position, I already have principles, overarching principles that I can apply to that situation that I also know is going to work in a different situation. So like I'm really, really excited to be doing this with you. You're really knowledgeable when you teach. And here's a question I have for you. Is this going to be like when you start talking about it, are you targeting like a specific audience, or like are you looking for like people that are really serious about jiu-jitsu? Like is that your target audience, or are you just, you know what, like it can benefit everybody?
Definitely the second one.
Okay.
Yeah, I want people to come into this conversation. Maybe they don't train jiu-jitsu, maybe they have another discipline, maybe they don't even train martial arts. But I think a lot of the philosophical principles that we can gain from jiu-jitsu can apply to other things.
Okay.
So definitely, I wanted to do this with the idea that anyone could benefit. Of course, if you train jiu-jitsu, I think you'll understand these conversations on another level or from a different perspective. But I do think that if you don't train jiu-jitsu, I think these conversations will add another layer to it. Because we're going to talk, in my opinion, we're going to talk about a lot of different, you know, philosophies, concepts, principles, ideas. And then what I want to do, and because I have some questions for you too, because I brought you on here because you have a really good perspective on things, especially in the MMA. Your fight IQ is very high. So now that you have a very high jiu-jitsu IQ, and it's getting better every time, right? You're starting to understand movement and positions and stuff. I believe your lens if I can say, is more sophisticated, because now you could see things from both a striking perspective and a grappling perspective, which before you joined, you just had a striking perspective.
Yeah.
So definitely I want people to tune in and gain, hopefully, what I think will be valuable knowledge to them and their lifestyle, whatever it may be, because I think we're going to get that jiu-jitsu conversation started, and we're going to start plugging away and looking at how it can be a lens for a lot of things outside of jiu-jitsu.
Okay, so before you ask me the questions you have, I have one for you.
Oh, here we go. Okay.
This is going to require
By the
you
way, I don't know what he's going to ask me. I haven't rehearsed, and he told me he had a question for me, and he likes to ask me on the spot. So I'm a little nervous, but
So this one's going to require you to tell a story.
okay.
Okay, so before I started doing jiu-jitsu, I would watch like a bunch of videos of like people talking about their experiences in jiu-jitsu, and the one that's I think is most recurrent, like people would tell you, oh, you're not gonna get to black belt without this happening to you. Like for example, injuries. It's something that like people are just honest, they're real with you. Look, if you do jiu-jitsu, man, you're gonna get injured at some point. It is a combat sport, it's gonna happen. One I hear all the time is there is no way you're gonna get to black belt without getting choked out. I'm not talking about like, I'm not talking about a choke and then you have to tap. I'm talking unconscious, out cold. Has that happened to you?
It has. It has.
Okay.
Yeah.
How? When? What happened?
So it was a dark, stormy. No, I'm just kidding. I woke up with my feelings. No, it was just another day at jiu-jitsu, and I was feeling good. I was feeling great. And I was passing everyone's guard, and I was really like, just feeling in my good flow state. And the way it happened was, I remember I was gripping the pants. And when you grip, when you guys are trained jiu-jitsu, when you grip, you kind of get into a phase where you don't really think. You're just going, like, this works, right? Let's say Toriando was working for me at that time. It just works. I'm getting everybody with it, and you push and you shove, and you really have this game. And I guess you could say the same thing about, if you don't do jiu-jitsu, there's times in your life where you're going through a very similar routine, and that routine's working for you. However, when I was passing, I didn't know the technique that I was put to sleep with, or that I was about to be put to sleep with. It was baseball choke from bottom.
Oh, God.
So the training partner put the grips, and I was a blue belt. He was a purple belt at the time. And when I started to pass, as you pass, you feed into the choke. And all I remember, it was a jiu-jitsu club, wasn't really a school yet. It was in a warehouse, no AC. In those of you that live in South Texas, or even Texas, understand what the summer heat, peak day, 6:30 p.m., 6 o'clock in the evening, on a June, July, in a warehouse with no AC, wearing gis. Can you imagine? Outside, just to give you an idea, the average temperature outside is about 100, 105, 110 degrees. So inside the warehouse, makes it worse. It was on the second floor, and as you know, heat rises.
Yeah.
So all that heat was up there. We had these big, garage fans that didn't do much.
It just spreads the heat.
It just spreads the heat, and so it's very tiring, very exhausting. We had this little Bluetooth speaker that I don't even think it was Bluetooth. We'd connect it to, some CD or whatever. So here's my point. As I'm starting to pass, you have to understand the environment. It's very hot, very stuffy, very frustrating. There's loud music. And because I don't know what's going on in my head, to pass, you gotta pass the hips, get to side control. I'm listening to this music subconsciously. I'm passing out. I'm not passing the guard, I'm passing out. And the music starts to echo, and echo, and echo, 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 echo. And it just stops.
And then you just wake up.
And then it's like your subconscious is underwater. Like, they're like, hey, whoa, everything is shaking, vibrating. Get up. And because I passed and he did a baseball choke, I didn't tap. So he let go because his arms were tired, and I didn't move. So when he got up, I was in turtle position, and he just moved me, and I was just like roadkill. Just out. And that's what they told me I looked like, right? So I could recall the story. But I remember hearing echoes, and I'm trying to do my best impression of it. It was just like shaky, vibrating echoes of music.
Damn.
So whatever lyrics were playing, it was like, oh, here's the song, and it just went on forever. And then finally they like woke me up, and it was like underwater, you start coming up, but it's like dark water, right? I'm super visual, right? Like I'm very, and as he came up, I'm like, what happened? Dude, we put you to sleep. How? What was that? It was a joke. Show me the joke.
Oh
that was
God.
the first question. Show me this joke. And he was like, yeah, you were passing. I was like, I thought I was a blue belt. I thought you just pass no matter what. No, it's not always just passing no matter what. You gotta clear the grips, stuff like that. So anyway, I learned the choke that day. Never been caught like that again.
Yeah, it seems like anytime I hear a story like that of someone getting put out by a choke, it's either like a loop choke or a baseball bat choke. Like those are the two ones that just gets everybody.
Everyone.
Like, what is it about those submissions? Is it just like lack of knowledge?
For me, it was a lack of knowledge, and also because they block the carotid arteries, it doesn't hurt. So you think you're fine, but it's blocking, it's blocking the arteries. So you're going out. It's like proven, right? Like there's nothing, you can't hold your breath or anything.
Yeah.
So I think it's lack of knowledge, lack of pain, because it doesn't hurt. Loop choke is very similar, and it's very sneaky. You think you're passing, and someone loop chokes you. Thankfully, I haven't got caught in a loop choke to sleep. I've been caught in a loop choke. But if I can get out, I tap, or I get out. Like, it's pretty simple. But yeah, that's my one story. It didn't happen again.
Okay.
It didn't happen again.
Do you think, because like with me right now, like of course I know what a loop choke is.
Yeah.
I know what a baseball bat is. Do you think it's gonna happen to me at some point?
I mean, it's hard to say, right? Like, I think it was a different time. This was 15 years ago. It was a different time. Back then, if you walked into jiu-jitsu school, you signed a waiver and you went into the pit of lions, and you either signed up or you never showed up again. And so back then, and you had, what it did is, it did two things, and one good, one bad. The good thing it did is it created a team of monsters. Most jiu-jitsu schools were just competitors, and if they didn't compete, they were just monsters. The bad thing it did is it fostered what I would consider like a gladiator environment, which is good to be well at a skill, but it's not good to invite others, like families and stuff. And so, we live in a new day and age where the only reason I don't think that'll happen to you is because what you know as a blue belt is a lot more than what I knew as a blue belt.
Really?
Oh, absolutely. Because, I was just talking to an old friend of mine. When I started jiu-jitsu, if you saw a purple belt, you'd want to touch him.
Unicorn?
Yeah, maybe it was like, yeah, definitely. Damn. You would hope that the purple belt would have a conversation with you and maybe like would want to train with you or just give you some feedback. So back in that day, there was no YouTube, there was no instructionals, it was just VHS. I would have to drive 6 hours to get to the closest seminar. In Texas alone, there was maybe 1 to 2 black belts in the entire state. And Texas is a lot different now, obviously. So when a Brazilian black belt legend like Draculino would do a seminar, like we drove to the seminar, we paid our $300-400, whatever it was. We stayed at a hotel, we did a 2-day camp, and he was teaching something revolutionary at the time. This is the latest stuff, guys, the latest stuff. What is it? Deep half guard, at the time.
Boy.
It was so new back then. It was the thing. And so you took the notes, you couldn't record. If you record it, they charge you another fee, only because you can replicate it to a VHS. There wasn't any YouTube. So the reason I say is like, you're in a better spot. Most blue belts are in a better spot now than blue belts 15 years ago is because of the growth of the sport, technology, an influx of immigrants moving to the United States to teach jiu-jitsu. Jiu-jitsu now is so popular in the United States that I would argue that it's got some of the best jiu-jitsu schools. You have people moving from Brazil and Japan to live in the United States to train with some of the best grapplers in the entire world, in the United States. Charlotte being one of them, right? You got Lucas and Charlotte. You got Atlanta. You got Florida. You got Austin, Texas now, which is crazy to me because I grew up in a town 3-4 hours, drive away from Austin. There was nothing like that. There was one black belt in Austin at the time, and I don't even think he trains anymore. It was just a different time. It was A tale of two cities. It was the best of times. It was the worst of times.
Yeah.
It was a different era. So I don't think you'll get caught because you know better. If I had known better, I wouldn't have gone to it. I would gladly have tapped, or I wouldn't have passed, and I would have broken the grip. So I know that's probably not the answer you want.
Nah.
But you're just too much of a good person, because I know you personally on that level, that I don't think you would be stubborn enough to fall in that trap and then to like not tap and get submitted by it. So.
Yeah, I get submitted enough. I get submitted enough to know.
We all do, but like you see that improvement. I'm sure you've seen, like, from where you were a year ago, where you were 6 months ago, and then 6 months from now is going to be it's an evolution of your character, and it's an evolution of who you are on the mats. I think the mats are a great reflection of personality as well, because if you're a mean person, you'll be mean in jiu-jitsu. If you're a nice and calm person, your jiu-jitsu will be nice and calm. And hopefully, I'm realistic as much as I'm optimistic. Hopefully, it brings out the good in people. But realistically, from my experience, it can also bring out the bad in people. And so it's good to always make sure that not everyone trains, but that you continue to foster an environment that helps produce better people when they leave the gym. If that makes sense.
See, this is the part that most people don't talk about, and that's why I'm excited for what you're doing right now. It's like, it's positive, but like it's not all positive. Like not everyone should do jiu-jitsu.
Right.
Like there's some people that you don't want to give those tools to.
Right. The same way, not everyone should, be a boss.
Right.
You get a person who has egotistical, narcissistic traits, and they become a boss. They'll abuse their power, sabotage relationships, create a bad environment. No one will want to work for them. You get a good person who understands people, human behavior, emotions, who can empathize. Great leader, right? Usually. And it comes in the form of people who have just been through a lot. That's one example. So, being a boss, a CEO, a manager is not for everyone. Being a truck driver, great profession. Definitely a big part of our society, right? How we move just not only traffic, but how we move products across the United States. Not for everyone. Mm-hmm. There's a particular person who can handle that much time on the road, away from family. Jiu-jitsu is not for everyone. It's definitely a great skill. It's a great tool to have, and it's awesome. It's part of my lifestyle, and I wish if in my youthful, hopeful, ambitious mentality that everyone could do it, but they can't. I would even fight for not everyone to do it, not anyone to do it. I even have a little bit, when students come in, there's kind of a little bit of an application process, right? Like, it's not a formal application, but I talk to them first. And 9 out of 10 times they're a good fit. If they're not a good fit, I still invite them to train, but it mostly comes out that they shouldn't be here, and it's happened in the past.
They kick themselves out.
They kick themselves out. They do several mistakes that are costly, that hurt other students physically or what have you, and then it creates a conversation where, like, hey, you hurt the student several times. I think it's best, you just don't train here. And they're like, yeah, I don't want to train here. So, at the end of the day, we can look at jiu-jitsu as a lens to kind of help us have a better idea of who we are, because it's like a mirror. And so many people have a hard time looking in the mirror, and I have a hard time looking in the mirror, metaphorically.
I don't.
Metaphorically. You like that I said that, right?
Yes.
Metaphorically. And I have a hard time looking in the physical mirror too sometimes.
Why?
Bedhead. Might need a shave. I don't know.
Nah, you're fine, man.
I'm fine.
Yeah, you
But
are.
metaphorically, like, okay, what are the issues? What are the insecurities? All of us have insecurities.
Yeah.
Jiu-jitsu brings them out.
Dude.
Right? And it's okay to have insecurities. It's better to deal with them and be transparent and look at the mirror and face these things. So that's kind of why we're doing this, is I really want to have these conversations about jiu-jitsu concepts and then higher order thinking. Like, what are we, why do we do what we do? And then it'll open up other conversations that I'm excited to have.
Yeah.
So can I ask you my question?
Go right ahead.
All right. So those of you that know, Marshall's a huge fan of MMA. He does a great breakdown of a lot of these fights. I've done a few with him, But to be honest, my heart and soul poured out into jiu-jitsu and the school, that sometimes I don't see these fights. And as you know, sometimes I fall asleep during these fights. He has evidence of that. Yeah, people don't know this, but we saw a fight together, and I was out by the co-main event. I was out by the co-main event.
And, well, actually, mostly the main event. But honestly, it's not your fault. It's Israel. I mean, he put a lot of people to sleep that day. It wasn't just you.
But it's terrible, man, because I go to bed late sometimes. I should not be falling asleep.
Yeah,
but it is what it is.
It's fine.
It happened.
It's fine.
So I want to ask you this question because I think it's a huge deal. Because now, this is like, in my opinion, it's no offense to you, this is like a martial mind 2.0. You're a blue belt. You would do really well in an MMA fight as an MMA coach. People don't understand like the level between a blue belt and a white belt. So you have now a grappler's IQ. You can sophisticatedly look at a fight and look at the grappling. Khamzat Chimaev. Nate Diaz.
Come on, man.
What do you think? I saw you post it. I didn't watch those videos because I wanted to hear it from you. You know, what do you think's going to happen? What do you want to happen? And the grappling. There's going to be grappling, right? Like this is.
Yeah. What I want to happen is I want Khamzat Chimaev to demonstrate that there are levels to this thing.
Okay.
Because there's still people, like the thing with Nate Diaz is he's such a lovable fighter, and he's such an exciting guy who also is so durable and can last a really long time. And he's done some incredible things. Like he'll get beat up like the whole entire fight, and then like at the end of round 5, he starts to win. Right. And so people look forward to that in his fights. Even when they're seeing him get completely trashed around the octagon, there's this belief, it's Nate Diaz, it's Nate Diaz.
Right.
Come round number 5, you can never take it easy because Nate can come back and win. What I want to happen is I want Khamzat Chimaev to go out there and shut him down completely, and show that there's truly levels to this, because I'm a fan of dominance. I really am. This is why I love guys like Tynan Dalpra, Gordon Ryan, Lucas Lepre. This is why I love watching you roll. I love seeing someone just be ridiculously dominant. So that's what I want to happen.
Okay.
What do I think is going to happen? I think Khamzat Chimaev is going to respect the aspects of Nate Diaz's game that is dangerous. One, his boxing. He has good boxing. I think Khamzat's going to respect that. I think Khamzat is also going to respect his guard, because Nate has a really good guard. We've seen him like submit people with triangles from guard. So, and Khamzat Chimaev is not exactly like a jiu-jitsu guy. He's a wrestler with really good grappling. But I don't think he can really play jiu-jitsu with Nate Diaz. I think Nate is better at jiu-jitsu, right?
Yeah.
So he's going to avoid jiu-jitsu, but he can get Nate into really dominant positions. Like he can take him down, end up in, say, top half guard. From there, in MMA, it's completely different. It's not like half guard in jiu-jitsu where you don't have to worry about strikes. Now you're worrying about people like striking you. From side control, Nate's got to worry about strikes. And then if Khamzat is able to mount, I mean, it's a barrage of strikes. So I think Khamzat is going to pressure him. I think he's going to ragdoll him. I think he's going to lift him up in the air, slam him down. He's going to end up in dominant position, and he's going to go to work on Nate Diaz quick. I think round number 1, round number 2 is going to be rough for Nate. His toughness, I think, will carry him into round number 3, round number 4. But I have a sneaky suspicion that come round number 4, round number 5, he's going to stop Nate. And it hasn't happened in a really, really long time. The last time someone stopped Nate Diaz was Josh Thompson with a brutal head kick. But I think Khamzat's going to stop him on the ground. I think it's going to be a TKO from ground and pound.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I think is going to happen. Yeah. So that's what I think. Well, we'll see. I've been wrong before, but that's my prediction.
So wrap up, if you want, the last 30 seconds about that, that Nate Diaz.
Yeah. So again, a lot of people are going to be watching this thing hoping for a huge upset. You know, they'll be hoping that Nate is going to, because the truth is the UFC is trying to screw over Nate Diaz. Like, it's pretty transparent. They're giving Nate, this is the last fight on his contract.
Oh, I didn't know that.
It's the last one. He's been asking, he wants out of the contract. And so the UFC is like, oh, okay, how about Khamzat Chimaev? So that's pretty transparent. So he's the underdog here. People are like, man, please, Nate, screw the UFC over, ruin their plans, but I don't think it's going to happen. I think Khamzat is just flat out better. Just going to leave it at that, and we'll see what happens.
We'll see what happens. It's going to be exciting. Thank you, Marshall.
Of course.
For coming on the show.
Of course.
We're going to do this project more with Marshall. I really like his insight. He's been a great student to me and a great friend, and I'm so excited. We got some more projects coming up,
yes.
more conversations to have.
Yes.
In the comment section, I'm going to ask you all a favor. We don't know what to call this, so give us your feedback. Give us ideas to name this podcast show. Would love to hear what you all have to say. And
specifically, a name that has Cáceres in there. So like mine, for example, is Heart to Heart with Marshall, something like that. We want something that it's instantly recognizable that it belongs to Tony Cáceres. So like, help us come up with a name for the podcast that has Cáceres in it. Yeah.
So something creative, like he just said, and I want to see what you all have for me. It'll be really fun. Yeah. Also, guys, in the description, I'm gonna leave a link. I just released a free course. It's to help you with concepts, principles, and even what I call like some secrets that a lot of black belts don't teach, and I wanted to release this because I feel a lot of students struggle with passing. So on the description, click on the link. It's bjjintensive.com. That'll take you to a page. When you go to the page, it's a completely free course. You don't have to pay anything, and I think it's very valuable because I've been taking months to create this course, so I'm very excited. It has a lot of cool stuff. I do some breakdowns that I haven't released on YouTube on the highest level. I do breakdowns on some of my students, and I talk about these concepts. Again, Marshall, it's awesome having you here.
Of course, sir.
We're going to do another episode. Want to hear from you guys, and until next time, keep training hard.
Peace.